What's up, everybody? Currently driving on a beautiful day, enjoying the sunshine and whatnot. Crystal just gave me some terrible news, which is that Chris Sununu is not running for president.
I know you're heartbroken, baby.
It makes me so sad.
I think you called him Chris Sahuhu, was your nickname for him.
Nobody knows it. His family is like, who? Who are you? Nobody cares about Chris.
Well, at least what you can say for him is he has at least like 10% intelligence and self-awareness to realize that shit wasn't going nowhere.
Yeah,
so.
Which, by the way, says a lot about like Nikki Haley and Tim Scott and these people.
Yeah.
That, like they really thought like, yeah, I might
Mike Pence is launching, Chris Christie is launching this week.
Adorable.
That dude from North Dakota, Borson, something like that.
I don't even know who this is.
He released a like teaser I'm running for president clip. So
did you see the so Asa Hutchinson is running, you know
yeah,
that? He's
right.
like the governor of
the governor of South Dakota. Arkansas.
Arkansas, that's right. And Trump was doing the Hannity town hall and he's like, this guy, I don't even know why he's running. Asa Hutchinson. I call him Ada. We call him Ada for a lot of reasons.
He said for certain reasons.
For certain reasons. It's like, what does that mean? Ada is not a thing. He's become like the caricature of himself, you know? Like, that's some shit I would say, like, pretending to be Trump because it makes no sense, but he did it.
I just don't know why he has to be so terrible
I know,
and
he's so funny.
Hilarious at the same time. It's really cruel,
right.
actually.
It's like a terrible mix of like evil,
right
but also will make you laugh every time he opens his mouth.
You just can't help it.
I know. Oh my god, he's like real life Eric Cartman, you know? He is. Anyway, all right. So the reason why we're recording is because we just got news. It came out like a couple hours ago. Apparently, Cornel West is running for president. Now, he's not running as a Democrat. He's not running in the Green Party. He's not even running as an independent, although I think that might be a little up in the air depending on the structure of the party he's actually running for. But he's running in the People's Party. Now, for those of you who don't know, the People's Party was created, I believe it was after the 2016 race of Bernie. A staffer for Bernie by the name of Nick Brana decided he was going to create this third party. So they've been around since, I don't know, 2016 or 17 or 18 at the latest, something like that.
Yeah.
And they've been around since then. They don't have ballot access, and they've never gotten a candidate elected. So, and then there's been all this reporting and all these questions around the structure of the organization. There's all sorts of like sexual harassment allegations against Nick Brana. There was some sort of like a coup of the leadership positions that Brana did. Like, it basically, the organization itself is a total mess, right? So when it comes to Cornel West, I love Cornel West. We had him on Crystal Kyle and Friends.
He's a hero of mine.
He's a
really
brilliant dude.
Respect him, yeah.
And I also love how he's really good at going into spaces where like people would disagree with him,
yes,
and making himself be really likable and really agreeable while not like giving up his principles at all.
Yes.
Like, he did a great job on Joe Rogan's podcast. He's just a very dynamic, charismatic, intelligent guy who I happen to agree with on probably 90% of policy stuff.
Yeah.
So I love Cornel West. I'll always love Cornel West. But honestly, my theory on this, and I'm curious what you think, Crystal, is that I don't think he looked into the People's Party at all. You know what I mean? Like, I genuinely think it's sort of like a Boomer moment where he was approached and, hey, we want you to run and be our candidate or whatever, which, by the way, is a whole separate question, because usually the way these things worked is you have a fucking primary to determine who your candidate is going to be, and the People's Party apparently just anoints somebody, which is kind of weird if you want to be like, we're the democracy people. Are you really? You just anointed somebody the head of your party. That's not the way you're supposed to have an election to figure out who's going to be the leader. But anyway,
fair point.
I love Cornel West, so that's a side point, but I don't think he knew like about all the issues with the People's Party. And so, all it requires is like a Google search and digging a little bit deep and he would have found it, but I guess he didn't do it. And so my guess is he's probably surprised right now at the backlash that's happening online. There's a decent amount of backlash where people are like, what are you doing? Like, do you know like who these people are? And then I see a lot of people making a point, which I think is a fair point, which is like, if you're going to run as a Green Party or an independent, because the Green Party, for example, I think the last election they had ballot access for 48 states.
Yeah, they have a real organization.
Yeah, even like the Libertarians have between like 48 states and 50 and all the states. Yeah. You know what I mean? So as far as third parties go, the only ones that are even remotely viable, and I use that term loosely, is the Green Party and the Libertarians.
I mean,
so,
you also have, DSA out there, which has never fielded a presidential candidate before, but they have, chapters nationwide, and it's a real organization with some sort of, infrastructure that could theoretically be mustered behind you. So it's perplexing. It's very confusing.
So the DSA strategy is the same as my strategy, which is, you be part of the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, but run as a Democrat. Now, why would you run as a Democrat? It's very simple. In this country, we have first past the post voting, and we don't have ranked choice voting. As long as you have first past the post voting and you don't have ranked choice voting, you know what's going to happen? No third party candidate is going to win Dickie McGeezax ever. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. I mean, there are no Green Party members of the House, there are no Green Party members of the Senate, there are no, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
If you change the structure of the system and we wake up tomorrow and first past the post voting is gone and we have ranked choice voting, like that, I instantly become the biggest cheerleader for like the Green Party.
Yeah.
But since we don't have that, it's just like, it's like self-disenfranchisement in a way. It's like, let me run without even having a remote prayer of winning and like just sort of like raise the status of my ideas or whatever. But oftentimes these things backfire, and it's like you're self-disenfranchising and you become more fringe and more marginalized because nobody takes you seriously in mainstream society because of the nature of the system.
Right. So let me just read. I'll just read his tweet announcing.
Because it's good. Like, I'm not knocking the guy. I love Cornel West.
Yeah.
Read his tweet.
And he put on a video that you watched. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
I thought it was good. It was a good video.
I'm sure it's fantastic. Like, he's brilliant. He's eloquent. He's inspirational. All of that stuff. So he says, "I'm running for truth and justice as a presidential candidate for the People's Party to reintroduce America to the best of itself, fighting to end poverty, mass incarceration, ending wars and ecological collapse, guaranteeing housing, healthcare, education, and living wages for all. Join the movement at cornelwest24.com. So it's left a little ambiguous, like maybe they do have some sort of a nominating process, primary process that he would have to theoretically get through. But I mean, I think he will probably be the only prominent person who would step up to be part of that process. So I think we could just assume that he would be their nominee. There's something you're speaking to here, Kyle, which is there's a question of like, do people have a right to run third party? Of course, like, absolutely. More democracy, more candidates, more conversation. Okay, that's all to the good. The question is, what do you tactically hope to achieve? And in a sense, there was a trial run of this tactic in 2016. Of, okay, so if Jill Stein runs and takes some percentage of the vote that, was significant, and whether this is true or not, the Democrats blame her for siphoning enough votes from Hillary for Trump to ultimately win. The tactical theory that they would offer is, even if you're running third party and you can't win because of these structural disadvantages set up in the U.S. political system, you have a chance to raise issues and push the Democratic Party to the left. Well, we tried that in 2016 with Jill Stein.
And the opposite happened. Right. So they still blamed you for losing and you became more marginalized.
Instead, they blamed and smeared anyone who even considered or said a friendly word about Jill Stein. They used that to tag leftists as being like Trump, enablers and like fascist adjacent and whatever. And rather than feeling pressure to move to the left, they actually pushed that, they sort of excised all the left. They took it as an excuse to disregard everything that the left was saying. And just, in terms of a tactic, it was a failure. Which,
by the way, so I will say, me personally, I'm not of the belief that Jill Stein cost Hillary Clinton the election for a variety of reasons, but when they polled Jill Stein voters directly, it was less than 50% of them that said, if Jill wasn't on the ballot, I would vote for Hillary. Mm-hmm. So the numbers just didn't work for Jill.
That's fine.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But to reiterate your overarching point, which is undeniable, it's that if the theory of change was, we're going to run, we're not even necessarily trying to win, but we're going to use this to then push the Democratic Party left because they have to contend with us because now we're a serious voice and we have enough of a percentage to be taken seriously. No, that was proven incorrect. The exact opposite happened. They took them less seriously, they smeared them more, they blamed them more. If anything, the Democrats moved further to the right.
Right. Crushed them more, did more to get Green Party candidates kicked off of ballots, all of that stuff. Instead of saying, let me listen to these people, they said, let me crush and smear and marginalize and dismiss these people. And those efforts did have some success. So as a tactic, I think you have to be open when you're looking at political change to, okay, what from the array of potential tactics works? On the other hand, As much as there are criticisms to make about Bernie's 2020 campaign, plenty of those you and I have made ourselves, the fact that Bernie Sanders was on that stage pushing issues like student debt cancellation forced Joe Biden to have to take positions on those issues that he wouldn't otherwise have taken. And I do think the student debt cancellation piece is the most clear cut. He did not want to do any student debt cancellation. He didn't want to talk about student debt cancellation when he was president. He dragged his feet about it. But because on the campaign trail, he had been forced into a position in the primary debates of saying something and making a very clear-cut commitment on student debt cancellation, he ended up having to do something on it as president. So you do see how within the context of a Democratic primary, you can actually force a Joe Biden to take positions that he wouldn't otherwise take. And that creates some pressure points to, cause some change that he wouldn't otherwise engage in with the power that he has.
But the more important point to me is he actually got really fucking close to winning.
Yeah, well,
he got over 43% of the vote, right? Like, he was right there, close to winning, closer than any third-party candidate in modern American history, closer by quintuple the amount, right? Like, just nowhere near it. So for me, and this is also something I have an issue with, it's like, I don't like the whole, like, I'm not running to win thing in any scenario. I just don't like it. I think it's stupid. I think it's a waste of time. Yeah. And I don't think this idea of like, oh, I'm just raising awareness for the issues, I don't think that actually bears out in reality. I think you should run to win. I think you should take it seriously and run to win. Now, in the final summation, though, I will say this. There is no contradiction here between like my support of Marianne Williamson in the primary versus what would happen in a general. Because if Marianne doesn't win the primary, and then it's a general election, and I, the resident of New York, have a choice to vote for Biden, Trump, or Cornel West, yeah, I'm going to cast my vote for Cornel West. But the difference between me and a lot of other people on the left is I see a lot of like hope and delusion that this is going to like usher in the revolution or usher in real change. When in reality, you cannot fool yourself. This absolutely is a protest vote, which will change Dickie McGee's axe. Like, it won't change anything. If you want to vote that way as a matter of principle, fine. But don't convince yourself it's anything other than like, I'm just doing a middle finger to the system with my 2% of other people in the country who agree with me on doing this vote.
And that's a best case scenario if they even have ballot access. Like, if
you can
even
always write them in. You
can always write them in, but if they even are able to make that a real option for people across the country.
Which I do think it'll either be a moot point because either they won't have ballot access, number one, or number two, he will say, I'm running as a People's Party candidate as an independent, and so he'll be running as an independent. I think it'll be one of those two things.
Yeah.
Is my best guess.
I mean, I will say, in terms of the general election, there's a huge interest in a potential independent candidate this time because,
I don't agree with you. I know what you're saying according to the poll. I know what you're saying, but I don't agree. But anyway, finish your point.
People are disgusted with the idea of like having to pick between Trump and Biden. There's no doubt about it. And so I think there are 2016 levels of interest in a third party candidate. In 2020, there wasn't really a significant third party effort that garnered much support. So I think you could theoretically have like Jill Stein levels of support for a third party candidate this time around. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 3%.
But that was a lot more than in 2020. So that's what I mean.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the level of third party support that, that I think someone could theoretically garner this time around. But again, you have to like Green Party is a real organization. They had ballot access almost everywhere. And that does make a huge difference in terms of what you're able to do.
And they have problems too, but it's nowhere near what the People's Party has. I mean, it's just not remotely close. But like, yeah, I see these polls too where it's like 70% of the country is open to an independent candidate. And then every election rolls around and every election it's like everybody who votes, which is only what, like 50% of the country, 60% of the country, it's overwhelmingly Democrats and Republicans. So it's like all those polls say that. Right. Like people in theory love the idea, but then in reality, they don't. And again, the reason why, I'll reiterate my original point, it's the most important point. If you are not first and foremost putting front and center, we're going to get rid of first past the post voting and get ranked choice voting, then this is all a total waste of time. And it's very weird to me that everybody likes to put the cart before the horse in this discussion. It's like, no, I'm not having this conversation until you do that first. If you do that and you come to me and say, Kyle, we need you to be a spokesperson for the Green Party, bro, sign me up, I'm in. Like, let's do this shit.
Right.
But if you don't do that first, it's like, don't waste my time. Don't put the cart before the horse. Don't pretend like there's a thing here that's going to happen. Here's what it's going to be. People might make fun of Marianne Williamson for being at 11% in the polls. 11% is going to be 11 times what these other candidates are going to be at. So anyway, that's my issue with it. But look, I love Cornel West. I always will. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's brilliant. We had him on Crystal Kyle and Friends. Almost every time I've covered him, it's been covering him in a positive fashion because he says brilliant things. I agree with his politics 90%. I just do think that this happens to be an instance where I just don't think he did enough like background research into what the People's Party is and what their record is and how sketchy and questionable they are. And so he ended up agreeing to it. And I guarantee you right now, I would guess that he's surprised at the backlash that he's getting from people who are otherwise massive allies to him. And I mean, I rolled through the replies to his tweet and his video.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people who are absolute Cornel West stans who are like,
what are you doing?
Hey dog, like, if this was the Green Party, you'd have me 100%. If it was just, I'm an independent, not affiliated with the People's Party, you have me 100%. But the fact that it's the People's Party, like you're sort of getting taken advantage of a little bit. You know, like, you probably should have done your due diligence and looked a little deeper into it and then made a little bit more of a reasonable decision on this front. So anyway, the final summation, like I said, I'm a man of my word. I said I'm supporting Marianne Williamson from the beginning. I'm still supporting Marianne Williamson. She's running in the Democratic primary. He's not running in the Democratic primary. If it gets to a general election and he's on the ballot versus Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I will probably vote for Cornel West, but I'm not under any illusions that this is going to usher in the revolution or it's going to bring about real change. Nothing ever will, the third party route, until you get rid of first past the post voting and do ranked choice voting.